evening. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. It's good to be together. Thank you for coming together to remember. We're here tonight, many of us, to remember our loved ones. And we're here to remember all those who do not have relatives to remember them. We're here to remember those who were murdered in the Shoah and all who suffered during that bleak time. Today is called Yom HaZikaron LaShoah VeLaGvura, the day of remembering the Holocaust and the heroism. We lift up the memories of those who were murdered and those who suffered, and also for those who found ways to stay strong, ways to stay human amidst the evil around them. We're here to remember them, and we're here to make a promise. Never again. Never again for the Jewish people, and never again for anyone else. We know that hatred has not gone away. We know that the impulse to denigrate and to scapegoat those who are different from us has not gone away. And we see in our world today that acts of violence against the vulnerable continue. We're here to remember, both to lift up those lives and also to do so that we can do our utmost to stop this type of dehumanization, this type of horrific violence from happening and from being allowed to continue again. We'll begin our evening tonight by joining together in prayer, by turning to God as a source of comfort and a source of strength. And so we begin our service tonight with a song, which is also a prayer, Ani Ma'amin. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Messiah, and even though he or she delays, I wait daily for him or her to come. We hope, we believe that things will one day be better. May we make it so.
Ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, me'emuna shalema.
We'll turn to our Sidurim now and rise as we are able to begin the evening Mariv service on page 624.
והורחם יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיב אפו ולא יאיר כל חמתו. אדוני הושיע, המלך יעננו ויעקרנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בדברו מעריב ערבים, בחוכמה פותח שערים, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם, ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים.
You may be seated. We continue 626.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת, תורה וצוחקים שרצים הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, והם נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
630.
Last 4 lines of 632. למען תזכרו ועשיתם כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן.
634.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם. משה ובני ישראל הכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם. Mocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh nora tehilot o sefer מלכותך ראו בניך בוקעים לפני משה זאלי אנו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי ברא אדוני יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גא ישראל
636.
La da da 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 la da Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Leshalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu Malkeinu Rosalene sukat shalomecha Tagneim betzat shofamech v'necha Shalom hashmeh Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoenu l'chaim U'shalom yata v'yad olam Baruch ata Adonai Shomer amo Yisrael la'ad
Page 640.
יתקדש שמי רבה וילמד דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביומכון ובחייכו בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי ימיים יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לאלה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן מימיו אמרו אמן.
Before we begin our Amidah, we're going to turn back in our books to page 735. And we'll recite responsively, "We remember the Holocaust." We recall with bitter grief the catastrophe which overwhelmed our people in Europe, adding an unprecedented chapter to our history of suffering.
We mourn for 6 million of our people brutally destroyed by civilized people behaving like savages.
The cruelties of Pharaoh, Haman, Nebuchadnezzar, and Titus cannot be compared with the diabolical schemes of the modern tyrants who sought to exterminate an entire people.
The blood of the innocent who perished in the gas chambers of Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Buchenwald, Dachau, Treblinka, Theresienstadt cries out to God and humanity.
We will never forget the burning of the synagogues and houses of study, the destruction of holy books and scrolls of Torah, the sadistic torment and murder of scholars, sages, and teachers.
They tortured the flesh of our brothers and sisters, but they could not crush their spirit, their faith, their love.
We recall our brothers and sisters in the Warsaw Ghetto and in other hellish places who valiantly rose up and defied the monstrous adversaries.
We recall the heroism of those who, in the face of unprecedented and overwhelming force, maintained Jewish life and culture and asserted Jewish values in the very midst of enslavement and degradation.
Even as we mourn, we recall those precious few compassionate men and women of other faiths and nationalities who, at the peril of their lives, saved some of our people.
Of such individuals did our sages teach, the righteous of all nations have a share in the world to come.
Adonai, remember your martyred children. Remember all who have given their lives for the sanctification of your name. And let us say, Amen. We'll turn back now to the silent Amidah, which begins on page 643 and goes through 654. We'll recite on our own in the Hebrew or the English or the prayers of our hearts. If you're still davening, please take your time. And if you are finished with your prayers, then please join together on page 654 as Cantor will lead us in Oseh Shalom, the bottom two lines in the Hebrew.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'yimru v'yimaru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
If you are here to remember family members, if you told me your names, and if you didn't tell me their names, please gather in the back of the room now. Mike and Hillary will be organizing the procession. If you did not tell us you'd be coming, just let Mike know so that he can alert me so that I can share whatever information I do have about your relatives. We'll turn now to the Kaddish Shalem as you make your way to the back of the room, page 660.
Yitzkada v'yitzkada Shemei Rabbah be'alma tivarach Yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael b'hagala u'v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ul'almei almayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yidroma v'yidnaseh v'yidhadar v'yit'ale v'yithalal shemer kodesha v'recho le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran me'alma v'imru amen. Titzkabel slorchon uva'utchon dechol Yisrael kaudam avahoni v'ishmaya v'imru amen. Yesh lama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim alenu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimaru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, o ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimaru amen.
At this time, we will now turn down the lights as we prepare to light candles in memory of our loved ones, and we can see visually here just how many people in our community were impacted by this terrible devastation. So many children and grandchildren of people who were killed, people who survived in this room. So we're going to turn the lights down. And I'd like to thank again Mike and Hillary for organizing the procession and Mimi for helping everyone with the lighting of the candles. The names that we'll say tonight are just a few, but we'll remember the names that we can, and we lift up as well those whose names we don't know. So, So we'll start by inviting Bernice and Ira Berkowitz and Marvin Rosner, Judy Silverman, and Julie Scheiken. They're remembering Salomon Rosner, father, survivor of the work camps Flossenburg and Theresienstadt. Ilana Rosner, mother, survivor of concentration camps, Auschwitz, Gelsenkirchen, Samerda. Molly Markovitz, grandmother, she perished along with 4 uncles and 3 aunts and 10 children in the concentration camps, including Auschwitz. And remembered by Judy Silverman, Bertha Leifer, and Martin Leifer, survivors of concentration camps, Dachau and Auschwitz. Carol Stein Blescher will light the next candle in memory of Ludwig Stein, father, a survivor, who was arrested on Kristallnacht, who was in Buchenwald, and after a short time he was released to travel to America along with his wife, Hedwig Meckel Stein, Carol's mother. And Joseph Stein, her uncle, perished, arrested in Samur Valley, France, sent to concentration camp, Auschwitz. And Ernie Stein Abrams, her aunt, perished, arrested in Samur Valley, France, and sent to concentration camps in Auschwitz. Fritzie Marion Abrams, a cousin who perished, arrested in Samur Valley, France, sent to concentration camp in Auschwitz. Gustav Abrams, uncle, a survivor of the work camp, also arrested in Samur Valley, France, and ultimately came to America. Ferdinand and Dortka Merkel, her grandparents who perished in a concentration camp. And Carola Merkel Moeller, a survivor who married Robert Moeller, converted to Catholicism and was hidden in the countryside by the Moeller family. Remembered by Aaron Kane and Martin Kane. Esther Kane, mother, a survivor of 1 ghetto, 7 concentration camps, 3 cattle car journeys, and 1 death march. And Herman Kane, father, a survivor of concentration and work camps, Auschwitz, Gulashof, and Luftwaffe. And Samuel Lajoand, grandfather, a survivor, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Remembered by Sonia Kane, the Kane and Greenhut families. Berthold Greenhut, father, survivor, was in Dachau with his father until released with visas to America. He became a U.S. citizen and served in the U.S. Army Pacific Theater, earning a Purple Heart. And Hiltrud Greenhut, mother, who reported weekly to German authorities while waiting for visas for travel with her mother to the U.S. After train and ship travel across Europe, Asia, the Pacific Ocean, and again train from California, they arrived in New York City. Hundreds of aunts, uncles, and cousins perished during the Shoah. Rini Simon and Ellen Cohen are remembering Samuel Drescher, an uncle and great-uncle, a survivor of concentration camp, Auschwitz, and Esther Rothschild Rabinovich, an aunt and great-aunt who perished in a concentration camp. Remembered by Gary Delson. Lee Blon, uncle, perished in the ghetto in Kovno. Zina Krivoplazov Lan, aunt, perished in the ghetto and work camp, Goldfields camp in Estonia. Moshe Lan, cousin, perished in the ghetto in Kovno. And Devorah Lan, cousin, perished in the ghetto in Kovno. Remembered by Perry Epstein, Litzy Epstein, mother, a survivor of the Kinder transport. Adele Marode, grandmother, and Walter Marode, uncle. Yoshi Marode, uncle. Annie Marode, aunt. All perished in Nazi death camps in Russia. Remembered by Esther Fine, Aaron Nazelski, father, survivor, concentration camp. Goldie Nazelski, mother, survivor, concentration camp, Bergen-Belsen. Remembered by Miriam Gendler, Julius Katz, father, survivor, in hiding in Shanghai. Remembered by Linda Geyer, Regina Michalowicz, Jacob Michalowicz, and Celicia Geyer. Remembered by Sharon Goldstein. Sulim Shalom Michelle Mordechai, who perished, grandfather-in-law. That's the grandfather of her husband Sanford Goldstein. Slama Mordechai perished. Lecha Vega Bengelsdorf and children Yankiel Hirsch Gershon Leib Slama Mordechai and Genendel Nowinska and children Hana Sura and 3 siblings unnamed. Remembered by Sherry Javier and her family. Rita Ehrlich, her mother. Brynja Kuhl and Abraham Kuhl, grandparents. Eileen and Leon Kashub, aunt and uncle. Survivors of work camps and concentration camps in Europe. Remembered by Ida and Paul Klein and Jake Jackniuk. Abram Jackniuk, father, survivor, in hiding and concentration camp, ghetto, Stepan. Frida Jackniuk, mother, survivor. Jacob Klein, father, survivor, in hiding. Rachel Klein, mother, survivor. Misha Jackniuk, uncle, survivor, concentration camp, Stepan, ghetto. Jacob Jackniuk, father, perished while in hiding. Edia Jackniuk, mother, perished in the Ravno ghetto. Bela Jackniuk, sister, perished in the Ravno ghetto. Rosa Jackniuk, sister, perished in the Ravno ghetto. Sarah Jackniuk, sister, perished in the Ravno ghetto. Ida Jackniuk, sister, perished in the Ravno ghetto. Luba Jackniuk, sister, perished in the Ravno ghetto. Joseph Jackniuk, brother, killed while in hiding. Aaron Jackniuk, brother, perished in the Ravno ghetto. Remembered by Mark Kolber. Henry Kolber, father, survivor, concentration camps Rapka, Plaszow, Auschwitz, and Buchenwald. Marcus and Leah Kolber, grandparents, perished in the concentration camp. Aaron Kolber, uncle, perished in a concentration camp in Auschwitz. Manya Kolber, aunt, perished in concentration camp, Auschwitz. Genya Kolber, aunt, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Mina Kolber, aunt, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Remembered by Alan, Jewel, and David Kozak. Morris Kozak, father, survivor, work camp and hiding. Eva and Isaac Kozak, grandparents, survivors in hiding. Remembered by Gabriel and Agnes Leibovic. Rose Leibovic, mother, survivor, work in concentration camps, Auschwitz, Poland, Krodinger, Latvia, Stutthof, Germany. Eugene Leibovic, father, survivor in hiding, Debrecen, Hungary. Clara Rosner, mother, survivor, concentration camps, Birkenau, Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen. Joseph Rosner, father, survivor, work camps, Saros Potok, Hungary, and several others. Martin Weinberger, grandfather, perished, concentration camps, Auschwitz, Poland, Stutthof, Germany. Ida Roth, grandmother, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz, Poland, and Stutthof, Germany. Samuel and Saren Turk, grandparents, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Leela Linson is remembering Robert Meyer Galvin from Lithuania. Mark Perrickman and Lisa and Jared Perrickman are remembering Gershon Perrickman, father, survivor, concentration camps, Zezmor, Stutthof, and Dachau. Rivka Perrickman, mother, survivor in hiding. Abraham Gubersky, grandfather, survivor of concentration camps, Stutthof and Dachau. Beryl Wexler, Yale Wexler, Solomon Kusavitsky, Jerry Greenberg, uncles, survivors, Chaya Gubersky, Leo Wexler, Mendel Wexler, grandparents, perished. Remembered by Lily Rubin, Solomon Zelmanovich and Serena Zelmanovich, survivors of Auschwitz. Serena's family all perished in Auschwitz. Israel and Lenka Kessler, parents. Hayatin and Moritz Kessler, brothers. Solomon's family perished in Auschwitz. Yosef Moses Zelmanovich, father, and Herman Zelmanovich, brother. Remembered by Rosalind and Marty Rudolph. Carl Balick, father, survivor in hiding. Sylvia Workerman Balick, mother, survivor in hiding. The Balick and Workerman families are too numerous to name, perished in hiding. Remembered by Alan Silverberg, Hertzkill Berenbaum, Hannah Berenbaum, Irving Dalesman, Marilyn Dalesman, cousins, survivors, concentration camp. Toby Silverberg, mother, survivor, Russian labor camp. Avram Silverberg, grandfather, perished in a pogrom in Stupnitz, Poland. Kayla Silverberg, Ola Silverberg, aunts, perished in a pogrom in Stupnitz, Poland. Dina Silverberg, perished in a pogrom in Stupnitz, Poland. Yitzhak Silverberg, uncle, perished in pogrom. at Stopnitz, Poland. Miriam Silverberg perished in a Russian work camp. And Gail Silverberg remembers Alan Silverberg, husband, Russian labor camp. Remembered by Manny Spiegler and Paula Spiegler. Leon Spiegler, father, survivor, concentration camp Auschwitz, Worcester, Gisdorf, Cupwater, and Schottenberg. Paula Spiegler and his mother, who's here today, survivor, work camp. Oscar Spiegler, uncle, survivor, concentration camps, Auschwitz, Worcester, Gisdorf, Cupwater, and Schattenberg. Hanna Zissel Spiegler, grandmother, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Aaron Mendel Spiegler, grandfather, perished, Log Ghetto, Ichula. Ichula Spiegler, cousin, perished in the concentration camp, Auschwitz. Benjamin Spiegler, uncle, perished, concentration camp, Gisdorf. Chaya Spiegler, aunt, perished, drowned in Stutthof. Rivka Leah Nagel, grandmother, perished, Log Ghetto. Bubby Nagel, with 15 grandchildren and children, perished. And along with Paula and Manny, they have their family, including Ruth and Howard Spector. Remembered by Sylvia Stern, Ethel Hirsch, mother, Erwin Hirsch, father, survivors, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Martin Hollander, brother, survivor in hiding, Zima. Zima Pasternak, aunt, survivor, concentration camp. Gisela Gottesman, aunt, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Regina Goldstein, aunt, perished, concentration camp. Ignaz Hollander, grandfather, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Sarah Hollander, grandmother, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Jacob Herskowitz, uncle, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Ethel Katz, perished with 2 children, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Yechiel Herskowitz, grandfather, perished, concentration camp. Blanka Herskowitz, aunt, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Henry Herskowitz, grandfather, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Zenny Klein, grandmother, perished, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Remembered by Albert and Sarah Torsman. Meyer Tordman, cousin, perished in hiding. Sarah, Joel, and David Denon, great aunt, great uncle, and cousin, perished in hiding. And remembered by Shelley Unger. She's, I believe, joining us online. The Safe and Gold families, survivors, and perished. Remembered by Marta Wexler, who's also joining on the live stream. Rose Selesky, mother, survivor, concentration camp, Bergen-Belsen. Ben Selesky, father, survivor, concentration camp, Auschwitz. Malka and Lipman Gur, grandparents, perished, concentration camp, Bergen-Belsen, and Auschwitz. Sippy and Samuel Selesky, grandparents, perished, concentration camp, Bergen-Belsen, and Auschwitz. remembered by Idell Wood, Anna Andruzier, survivor. Remembered by Logan Howdeshell, David Katz and family. Remembered by Mike Zimmett, Herman Zimmett, grandfather, perished in Auschwitz, and Anna Zimmett, grandmother, perished in Auschwitz. And we now remember the million children who were murdered during the Holocaust. And our Tikhon students will light a candle in their memories. Many of our Tikhon students also have relatives who were in the Holocaust. I'd now like to invite our confirmation student who's here tonight, Naomi Shaikin, to come up to the front. We have our Holocaust menorah lit in memory of the 6 million, and each year we turn it off and light that light anew to signify that we will always have that light lit and we will always remember. So I'd like to invite Naomi. So the menorah right over there. Right, so it has the 6 candles. The 6 candles, one for each of the 6 million who perished. Okay. Naomi, do you see the switch there? Okay. Thank you. As we hold the memories of all those whose names we've said tonight in our hearts, we're going to have the opportunity tonight to hear the story of one man who lived through Kristallnacht and managed to escape to safety to America. So our announced speaker tonight, Fred Behrend, is sadly under the weather and unable to join us in person, but his son is joining us tonight, as is Larry Hanover, who is the co-author and editor of the book that they wrote together. So we will start our program tonight with a short documentary about Fred Behrend and his life. And then following that documentary, I'll introduce Larry and we'll have an opportunity to do some questions and answers and to learn more about him. So thank you, Mark. Mark Colber is doing our technology tonight and always. While we get that going, I guess I'll read Fred's bio now, since he won't be speaking here in person. Fred was born in 1926. His name was Fritz Bernhard. Now it's Fred Behrend. He's a retired businessman and noted speaker who frequently lectures on his experiences during and after the Holocaust. Behrend was 12 when his family fled Germany after his father's arrest and detention in the Sachsenhausen concentration camp in 1938. While serving in the U.S. Army, Behrend's skills as a translator led to positions overseeing captured soldiers being retrained to lead post-war Germany, as well as working with Werner von Braun, the eventual catalyst for the U.S. space program. Behrend later owned a successful air conditioner and television business in New York, and he lives in Voorhees, New Jersey. And his book will be available for sale in the lobby when we all leave this evening. Okay, thank you, Mark.
Whenever you're ready. I am now taking and reading out of my father's diary the paragraph which reads as follows. These are the things that happened in 20th century Germany. All this, according to the old German proverb, the world will benefit from the German character and conduct. I too was taken into custody and arrested in the morning at 6 a.m. by the police. I watched them as they loaded their pistols in front of me, as they remarked that they would be happy to make use of them should I intend to take flight. Thank God that our son was in Cologne at this time. I emptied my pockets and let them take me away. I was taken to the police station where I was asked to surrender my hat and suspenders as well as any other items still in my possession. Picture. This is a picture from my grandparents and my father. This is my father, this is my aunt. These are brothers and sisters. These were my grandparents. And they are sitting here holding a Seder, which is given for Passover. But this is this Seder plate. And the Seder plate has been in our hands since 1710. The person that actually made the Seder plate is one of my forefathers by the name of, I think it was Bernhard Behrend. In 1710, it's marked for the date 1710. It's marked right here. Okay. For those people who are going to watch this film, this is called a yacht. It's a very simple object. It's a pointer, and it's being used when we read from the Torah, which is basically the 5 books of Moses, in temples. This particular yacht has a history. On November the 9th, Kristallnacht, when the synagogues in Germany were all burnt and destroyed, the day afterwards, my father went to see if there was anything left of the temple. In the ashes, he saw something shining, and he bent down and picked it up, and it was this yacht. So he put it in his pocket and took it home with him. Years and years and years later, one of my grandchildren became bat mitzvah. And the thought came to me that as much as one dictator tried to eliminate the Jews of Europe, here is a child from a person that escaped the Holocaust and is using this yacht to read her Parsha with the idea that you cannot kill a religion. And so when I think about it, I say to myself, if my father was still alive today, he would probably say to me, well done. I'm proud of you. And that's the yacht. I was a spoiled brat. I was sort of kicked out of my home with my families, and was now in the care of people that I didn't know, and I missed my parents. I was always very homesick. But the Baum family was such nice, warm, caring Jewish family that really made me feel as if I was one of their children, and treated me as such. So my sense of, I wouldn't call it loneliness, but the feeling of not having my own parents around was not anymore that strong, and therefore it made my stay there not only better, but it was, from what I can remember, a very happy life. And the thing I do remember is Cantor Baum sitting behind the piano, practicing some of the melodies that he would sing in temple. But he also played Chopin, he played Schubert, he played classical music to us. I remember sitting around the piano and the whole family singing songs to his accompaniment of the piano. As I said before, it was a very close family, a very warm family. When I think about it, it was a delight to be a member, to be accepted as a member of the family. School, there were no school buses, you walked. We passed two synagogues. Both synagogues were in flames. The flames were shooting out the windows, out of the doors, and whatever they could carry out, get the Torahs, the prayer books, they would put in the middle of the street and put them on fire also. And people that were watching this were cheering them on. You know, kill the Jews, kill the Jews. It was terrible, but we were only 12 years old at the time. We didn't know what was going on. So we went to school, we came to the school, and the school was burning. Now, what do you think my feelings were when I saw that school burn? What do you think, how I felt?
Happy.
Yes, you got it.
You were happy that
Boy, was I happy. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Can you imagine the school? No school next day, no homework, no teachers. It was great. And then we walked back home and figured, let's see what we could do during the day and play. And we got home to where I was boarded with this nice couple.
Every survivor's story must be told. Every survivor story is important. They are not only speaking for themselves, having survived the Holocaust, but they are speaking for those that did not survive the Holocaust. There is no substitute for an eyewitness, a survivor telling their own story. There's no substitute for that. So when I take survivors to schools, the impact it has on the kids, there's no substitution for it. You know, hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. You know, it's like living history. It's like if you got to sit down with George Washington or Rosa Parks and they tell you their own story. There's nothing that can replace that. So, you know, to hear the kids, you know, when they hear a survivor speak, you can hear a pin drop because they want to learn. They can't, you know, It's so unimaginable to them, and yet it happened.
I couldn't understand what was going on. And I saw people being marched through the streets with what I called the SS, which were the black shirts and the brown shirts, leading them on, beating them. But they were young people that were old people, bystanders that were on the sidewalks throwing rocks and whatever was handy at them and cheering the accompanying band of SS and SR along, and watching them being beaten. Some of them were bleeding. Some of them would be falling on the streets. We didn't know, we didn't realize that they were Jews. We had no idea who these people were. It was just a sight to behold, as if there was a parade of some sort going through the streets. And the understanding of actually what happened, that came many, many years later, realizing that we were present, witnessing the cruelty, what people can do to other people. I called my home because I was worried. We couldn't understand what was happening. My mother, of course, was well aware of what was going on, and she assured me that she's going to send our car to Cologne to pick me up and take me back home. Of course, she never mentioned the fact that the evening before, the stormtroopers came to our house with drawn guns. When my mother opened the door, they said, "Is the Jew Hermann Behrendt here?" And my mother almost fainted from fright when she saw these people with drawn guns at the door. And my father came out and said, "Yes, I am Hermann Behrendt." And they took him, threw him in the local prison, in the local jail, where he stayed for, I think it was something like 2 days, until Gestapo picked not only him but all the other Jews which were rounded up at the same time, put them on the train, took them to Berlin, where they were then taken to the concentration camp Sachsenhausen, which was in the neighborhood of Berlin. And I ended up in a camp called Fort Eustis, Virginia. And there was a sign across Fort Eustis, Virginia. It was called the Intellectual Diversion Program. I didn't even know how to spell the word diversion. The first time I was thrown into a large room, I would estimate there had to be at least 800 to 1,000 PWs maybe in there. And what I was doing in there without a sidearm, with no protection whatsoever, is a miracle. It's a miracle. Here they sat, they looked at this little Jew boy, and I didn't have a nose like this right now. My nose looked as Jewish as a Jewish nose you would expect to look. And they knew exactly who they had in front of them. And here was this kid telling them how to run Germany. I mean, to me it was like a big joke, but I was much too scared to even smile, because here I had all of these faces looking at me and probably thinking, I wish we could get this dirty Jew alone. We will show them how to govern a government. Well, anyhow, that's what we did.
At Fort Getty in the United States, German prisoners attend special classes to fit them for leadership in their own country. The Gestapo, they learn, is out, along with other fascist institutions, in the reconstruction of Germany. Histories and textbooks on democracy are studied under noted teachers like Colonel T.B. Smith, former congressman. Languages, government, finance, and public safety are part of the course, which was ordered by General Eisenhower. Several thousand Germans, all volunteers, will be taught here.
Sort of the crash courses in democracy, that was based at Fort Eustis, Virginia. That ran from very early January 1946 until April of 1946. So it's about a 4-month program in which they educated somewhere in the neighborhood of about 23 or 24,000 of handpicked German POWs. They did 6-day courses over the course of 4 months. And so they would bring through a selection of prisoners for 6 days, give them this crash course, move them on, bring in another group.
We worked for a person in Galapagos. This was really a wake-up to see what their thoughts were of the Americans, and certainly of the Jew boy that was teaching them. They were shocked and surprised that people in America did not have the same opinion about the Jews as them. The Jews were all the rich. Jews were in charge of leading government agencies. Jews were influencing the way the government was run to every extent.
Yeah, I could see why he would feel disheartened given some of the answers that he cites in there that he had read from the prisoners' responses. Again, particularly about Jewish roles, alleged Jewish roles in German misfortunes. Yeah, I think Fred's work and the work of the people that he worked with, I think was a noble one, and I think they probably had more impact than they may have been aware of at the time.
The realization how important it is to tell and to talk to people about the Holocaust, that came to me very late in life, really. I never even thought about it, to be honest with you, until I would say after my retirement and finishing my diary, and as I reread it, I said, this is something that young people should know, because otherwise in another 10 or 20 years it will be totally forgotten. Giving this talk to the kids in the class, which was the usual beginning of my talks, and when we got to the point that I mentioned Max Baum as the father, and him being the cantor in the Orthodox synagogue, the rabbi, the principal of the school, got very excited and very suddenly left the room. And I thought I had said something maybe that was not right, and disappeared. And a very short while later came back holding a cell phone in his hand and saying to me, I've got somebody on the phone that wants to talk to you.
Your first name? Heinz.
Oh my God.
This is it. Okay, here he is. Here he is. Hold on. Talk loud because he's in a store.
Oh, okay, Heinz. Hello there. Is your sister's name, or was it Margot? I'm Fred. I'm Fritz. Well, I live with you and your parents. Well, we escaped to Cuba, came to the United States, and lived in New York. Until 12 years ago, when I lived over here. You gotta give me his phone number.
I'll get it to you.
I'm gonna call you at home. I wanna get together. You live where? I am now in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You're going where? I'll be in Florida for 4 months in Delray Beach. I'll be back for you. Oh, in Deerfield. That's not far away from me. Oh, I've got to get together with you. I've got to get up. Oh my God.
Here we are today.
Yeah.
What is your hopes for this meeting?
That he remembers some of the things that I forgot, and will remind me of the things that I forgot, so that I can picture better the times in which we lived when we were together. And I'm certainly interested to find out whatever. I'm fascinated by the fact as to whatever happened to him. How he got out of Germany, where he lived, and what brought him back to the United States. But the first question that I'm absolutely eager to find out is how and by what means was he able to leave Germany? I knew that he went to England. How did he get to England? From age 12 to age 91, there must be an awful lot of things that happened. So I want to be able to hear as much of that as I possibly can. Oh my God, I don't believe this.
You don't need any today. Oh, come on.
As they say, Henry Baum, I presume. Hey, how are you?
How are you? It's been a little while.
Well, only 80 years of it. Who counts the years?
Minor detail. Take a seat. Relax.
I am. If I was any more relaxed, I would be lying down and sleeping. Nice to meet you. And how are you? It's been a long time.
Yes, I would say.
I would think. Well, you're a baby compared to me. You're 1 year younger.
Of course.
But I hope you look at me with respect, since I'm so much older than you.
I give you the respect of old age.
Okay. This is my friend Nicky.
Yeah. Please. No.
Over here. Oh boy. All right. Now.
Can I do this?
Yeah.
Comfortable?
You comfortable?
I'm very comfortable. I'm very. Oh, one second. I didn't forget. I remember your home.
Yes, but
I brought my old yarmulke.
Wow, how old is it?
80 years old.
Don't ask. Don't ask. Okay, I got lots of questions for you. To start out with.
Yes.
How did you get to England? In what manner did you get to England?
Kindertransport.
Whose Kindertransport was it?
The British government gave 10,000 visas to children under the age of 18 from Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Germany.
How did I
went to the schools? And the schools chose children, and they sent pictures of those children to England, and then there were people in a committee who chose the pictures, and who was chosen went. My mother went to her uncle and asked him, shall I send the children away? Because my father was no longer there. He was already deported in October the 28th, I believe, to Poland. And so she asked him, shall we send the children away? And he said, absolutely yes. And she took me to the station, and she waved goodbye, and I was crying my eyes out for the next 5 days. And when we finally got out of Germany, where the Gestapo was on the trains, and we saw in Holland people standing in line in front of the train handing out cocoa and cookies, And there was, we entered the New World.
From Holland to England?
To Harwich,
Yeah.
to England. And there we were dispersed to wherever we were supposed to go.
You stayed with the family?
No, I was in a hostel. In Brighton, 33 Terrace, something.
In the hostel? You mean you were in the hostel until the day you left?
I was in the hostel until the day I quit.
You quit.
It was an orphanage for 27 boys. I had a good job there. Every Sunday I ironed 27 shirts and pressed 27 pants. And from there, at 14, when we had to leave school because that was the end of our education, nobody paid for the further grammar schools, we were apprenticed to different places. And I didn't have much of a choice in it, but I was apprenticed to a fur place, to a furrier.
Right.
And that's the trade I learned there.
When did you? We escaped, basically. What is
Yeah,
it? My father was in a concentration camp.
Yes.
He was in Sachsenhausen. You could get out of a concentration camp if you could prove that within a period of 2 weeks you would leave the country.
Yes.
So he got off.
Excuse me for asking. Did you need a visa to get there, or just your passport?
That's a story in itself. Okay, how did we get to the United States? The only way you could come here is two ways. Either you had an affidavit,
right,
which was that somebody said that we are going to take care of you. You're not going to be a burden to the country. And the other way that you could come to the States, if you deposited for each person $7,500 into a U.S. bank, that was your guarantee that you would not become a burden to the country.
Yes. Yes.
There were 12 of us. The only 12 survivors, all the others got killed. And we all went at the same time on the same boat to Cuba.
Remember?
It was, yes, of course. Iberia.
Who deposited the money for
My
you?
uncle.
Good.
Figuring at today's rate, it was almost $1 million.
You got probably close to it. Yes.
Very close to it. So because there were 12 of us at $7,500, it was a huge sum.
Yes.
And then he deposited another $6,000 into a bank in Cuba so that all of us would have money to live on. And we stayed in Cuba a year and a half until we were allowed it. 1939 to 1940.
When did you come to Detroit?
To Cologne, I was 10 years old. I was only with you about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years.
But you left every weekend to go to...
I did not. They didn't pick me up. They left me with you.
Did they?
No, I always, whenever they picked me up, it was once every month maybe. I wanted to go back with my father. The one thing, I have very little memory of your parents, but there's one thing which still is as clear in my mind as it was when I must have seen it, was on Friday, was your mother. She rolled the dough on the table. It used to be about this wide and this long, and she didn't curse that it fell apart or anything like that, but she had lots of trouble with rolling it thin, and then with a knife she cut it so we had noodles. Yeah, we had noodles for the chicken soup. Funny, but that's the one thing that I remember. Other than that,
and guess what? My girls roll it.
Really? I think that's great.
All of them. And they all nibble it before
I think that's really great.
Sure we do.
When I got out of the army, I couldn't go to college. I said I have to learn. My father said you got to learn a trade. I went to a school by the name of RCA Institute. Today RCA is a very famous name. At that time it wasn't that well known. And I learned electronics. And there was no television yet, but radio and record players and all of these things. So I learned electronics, and then television came about, and I went back once more for a course, learned television. Became a television mechanic. And I was fabulous. I was just about the best television academy you could find in all of New York. And my fame spread to such a point that even Margot Monk heard of me, and I get a telephone call one day. My name is Margot Monk. You became so highly recommended that you are such a magician as fixing televisions. Could you maybe come and take a look at my sick one? I said, of course, it would be my pleasure. We made a date, went up there, and 1, 2, 3, I fixed the television. Of course, you got paid about $2 for a service call, which was a lot of money even then. But how could you leave that quickly when they get the $2 and then run? You had to put on a show at least. You know, in those days to fix the television, they had tubes, something like a light bulb, and if the tube wasn't lit, well, you know, that was the trouble. So what you did, you took that tube out of the TV, you opened up the box of tubes, put another one in, and it was done. But you can't do that so quickly. You got to put on a show. You got to say, oh boy, oh my God, never seen anything like this. This is really a difficult case. I mean, you had to put on a show. And after everything was fixed and done, and I presented her with the bill, she says, Mr. Barron, you have an accent. Tell me, where do you come from? I said, well, I come from Germany. She says, well, I come from Germany too. Well, where from Germany are you? I said, you've never heard of the city. It's a small city. But she says, try me. I said, well, I come from a city by the name of Lüdenscheid. She says to me, you know, this may surprise you, but I've heard and I know of a city by the name of Lüdenscheid. I said, how could you ever know a city by that name? She says to me, long, long ago, years ago, there was a father who brought his son to my family in order to be able to go to a school in Cologne. And he came from Lüdenscheid. So I asked her, by any chance, is your first name Margot? She says, yes, it is. I said, I'm that boy. I inquired about his parents from Margot, but she did not talk much about them. Probably tried to forget what happened to them. I mean,
I don't know whether we tried to forget what happened. It's just a question that we didn't know what happened.
Well, yeah.
The only thing that we knew is that from Wrocławek they were taken to Warsaw, and Nowolipki was the main street. They must have lived there. Nobody could ever find, even though I have a number, nobody could ever find out where they lived or how they lived. And the reason I keep thinking about that in my mind is because my father was a chazan. How do you earn a living in Warsaw, in the ghetto, doing that?
Really?
You couldn't. You couldn't find anything. So they must have lived in a little winkle, in a little bedroom or separate thing, in a place where they rented or whatever it is, because they surely didn't have any money to pay for anything. They died, to little that I knew about it, in 1944, just before the rescuing of the termination camps.
Yeah.
They didn't make it.
Right.
It's mind-boggling what children forget or do forget, or how they feel. It's, in retrospect, I should have done much more. In retrospect, I should have felt much more. But I don't know. But it just only begins to dawn on you as you grow up and as you have your children and you see your grandchildren, and then you look back and see, what did you do to try and help? Did you do anything? Is it your fault? Is it not your fault? Did you think of anything? It goes through your mind, and I have no answers.
What you could have done as a child?
Maybe get somebody to give an affidavit. Remember something, my parents were queer. They finally got a number, which was an emigration number. They could go out. They finally got it. Polish Jews did not get many visas to go out. They did go, they did have one. And it means that they had a job. My father got a job in Buffalo, New York. By the name of an affidavit was given by the name of Rosenberg through the Agudas Israel, I believe, today. And they were ready to leave, and one signature on my mother's affidavit was missing. They had to send it back to America to get the signature of some, I won't call them a flunky, or whatever it is, to make that legal. My father gave his ticket to leave Poland and the ship through the Baltic. He refused to leave by himself. He wouldn't leave my mother behind. He gave his ticket to my uncle, my mother's brother, who came to America, and he stayed there and went from there to the Warsaw Ghetto. And then whatever. One signature.
You know, this may surprise you. In my early years, I went to temple on the holidays, but other than that, I was.
Shall we say freedom?
But now on Shabbos I go to, every Shabbos I'm in temple. Not out of religious reasons, but I feel very comfortable there. I feel at peace with myself.
Whichever way you define what is religious or not, doesn't make a difference, but you are there.
I'm there. And people are always asking me if I'm in a temple where I don't belong, or where at a different temple, and I say, I get up for Kaddish. People ask me, so who are you saying Kaddish for? I says, I'm not saying Kaddish basically for any family member. I say I get up for Kaddish every time it is said in the temple, because I say Kaddish for the 6 million Jews who may not have anybody to say Kaddish for them. But I'm so happy with my children that they still keep a little bit, at least, of their Judaism. They are teaching their children also.
Very nice.
So this is.
How many children?
Well, I have 2. They're all pains in the ass. And, when they grow up, they are. But you love them anyhow, right? And I have now I got 3 grandchildren.
Lovely.
3 grandchildren.
That is lovely.
So what can I tell you? Well, I look at you. You have 3 of your own.
6.
6 of your own. I don't think they're going to be able to eliminate the Jewish race at that rate.
That's every time when there is a wedding or when I speak, you say Hitler did not win.
No, he certainly did.
And he did not succeed. You can't live your whole life in anger. There is too much love, too much encouragement, too much living. If you were to spend your whole life in anger, there's no point in living. But when we look at the greatness of what the Ribono Shel Olam, what God has given us, why should we go down on the side of pessimism? It's the greatest optimistic lives that we look around and see that when we look at our children, when we look at our grandchildren, we look at our great-grandchildren, and everybody follows the tenets of that. We learned at home, we tried to give over, and they continued it. And all of them have. Thank God, every one of them. So why should I look at being a pessimist if everything looks that great?
Is there any last questions you want to ask of each other?
Yeah, when are we going to see each other again?
I hope soon.
I hope so too.
So I want to thank Larry for being here tonight. Larry Hanover was an award-winning reporter and editor for the Times of Trenton. He has written on subjects as diverse as the anthrax crisis after the 9/11 attacks, education, politics, and professional sports. He works as an editor and writer and serves on the Temple University's adjunct journalism faculty. Together, Larry and Fred wrote Rebuilt from Broken Glass, A German-Jewish Life Remade in America. I've been reading it. It's a fascinating book. And again, I highly encourage you to check it out. It will be on sale when you leave here tonight. And so now I'd like to invite Larry to speak a little bit. We saw this beautiful film that you helped to make, that you created. And so folks will have an opportunity. I'll let Larry share a few words, and then we can do some questions. Please.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. This one's different. I've always had him with me when I've done these spiels. Sorry he was under the weather here, but I'm glad you got to see the documentary because you got a glimpse of that personality, as you can't miss it. I'm here for a Q&A, and I'll just, the first question's generally the same, so I'll just answer it. It's like, how did you guys get together? Well, we were both members of Congregation Bethel in Voorhees, New Jersey, Cherry Hill area. And my son Tyler was in his last year of Hebrew religious school, and the rabbi said, oh, we're going to have a Holocaust survivor come speak to them, and we would like the parents to come join them if they can. So I did, and I saw that personality. I'm waiting to be all depressed, and maybe a little bit, but not for long. With this guy, he's just like talking about Cuba, and he's talking. It's like, well, I'd been out of newspapers for a few years, and I thought, man, maybe I should write a book about this guy. What an idea that would be. And here it is. Yada, 7 years later, so we wrote the book. And just as things were winding down, getting back into a normal routine, sitting at my desk at work, and all of a sudden my phone's blowing up, and it was his daughter Evelyn saying, you're not going to believe what just happened. And it was that reunion you just saw. I was like, I don't know anything about making a documentary, but I guess I'm going to find out. So that was, hopefully I answered your first question. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you? Yes.
Was it difficult to get from Cuba to the U.S. and do you know the year that happened?
1940. And once you had your immigration papers, you just had to wait your time until they pulled you out. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Andy Behrend. I'm Fred's son. So I'm intimately aware of our family history.
Thank you, Andy. Other questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, they had the quota number when they were in Germany, but it took a long time. If they had to wait until they could get into the U.S., it would not have worked. They had to get to Cuba any way they could, which is basically bribery in a legal sense. Any other questions or?
Yeah, did they ever change the age on documents? Because certain people of certain ages were allowed into the United States.
I'm not aware of that. It's not something that their age change on documents. I'm sure it happened, but I'm no direct experience. Yeah, she asked if the ages were ever changed on documents. Not that I'm directly aware of, but it wouldn't surprise me if it happened.
The reason I asked you is because my parents came over from Poland.
Yeah.
In the 1950s. And in the last year of my mother's life, when she was 96, we found out she
She was 3 years older than you thought. I wouldn't argue with that.
Children's passports were as part of parents. So if you looked at the one that was on mine, and I can be pretty loud. If you look at the picture that was in the documentary, you'll see that my dad's picture was on my grandmother's. So he didn't have his own passport. They traveled on parents'
Right.
passport.
And I think many of you in this audience are probably familiar. Their names were changed if they were in Israel to mark them as Jewish. And you can see it on the passport. The male name, they had to add Israel as a middle name, and his mother had to add Sarah, S-A-R-A, as a middle name to mark them as Jewish. And, yes, ma'am?
They said that his uncle had enough money for 12 family members or 20 family members. What was his profession that he had all that money?
I got the mic, it's okay. Yeah, his profession, he worked for a shipping company that still exists today called Louis Dreyfus. Yeah, so he was quite a wealthy man. And I actually saw the documents with the writing back and forth between Fred's mother and his uncle. And at some point she asked again, is there any more money? And it was, I'm sorry, I have nothing left. And his fate, the story's kind of doesn't quite add up, but the gist of it is that in the spring of 1940, because he was such a target with his wealth, that he knew just before the German invasion, he knew that German agents were after him, and he committed suicide. So he did not make it. But his family did make it. They fled from Denmark in fishing boats across to Sweden, and they were able to survive that way. That was one of the, it's amazing. I thought I knew about the Holocaust, but as I met him, I learned so much more. I mean, I heard from people here, they fled to Shanghai, they fled to Japan, Australia, where anybody that would take them. It was such a scattering. It was unbelievable. Is there any other questions? Over here? Yes, please. Did he have any success with educating the POWs? Yeah, that was the point that I was glad I interviewed that professor in the movie, because Fred's own attitude was that it was a dismal failure. They had the Gallup poll organization do a poll of these prisoners, and you see, I've seen the documents that these dirty Jews were behind their own misfortune, and they had it coming to them. A lot of that mixed in. So he was thoroughly convinced that he accomplished nothing. And but this professor I interviewed, he said, no, I have a lot deep knowledge of that program, and I can tell you they accomplished something. And I think Fred was pretty reassured to hear that.
They didn't have a choice. The person running the camp got appendicitis and died, and they needed somebody culturally German and German speaking so that they would understand what was going on around them. So they literally
Here, one second, Andy. We have a bunch of folks watching on the live stream, so I'll give you this.
So they literally, my dad was in the Army already, was about to be sent to the Asian theater when they were yelling out a name on every truck that was going towards the ships. And it ended up being him. And they dragged him off the transport. That's how he ended up there. He's lived a very charmed life, and he's going to be 99 in November. So, just by the way, why he's not here, he was sick last week in the hospital, so he's still recovering.
He would say, I'm 98 years old. No, 98 years young.
Yeah, he would say that.
The funny thing is, when I talk to him on the phone, I start lapsing into his accent, and my wife starts yelling at me, what are you doing? And why are you talking so loud like Fred?
Whatever. He doesn't think he has one. My mother they were not married at that period of time. My mother came out of Austria through the Czech Republic to Panama, and she lived in Panama for 12 years. And then immigrated to the States.
Is your mother living?
Unfortunately, no, she's been gone over 30 years.
1991 she passed away, unfortunately. There's so many stories. The astonishing thing is you've only got a fraction of the stories. I'm a little biased, but you got a peek in the book. It was mentioned in his bio that he worked with, while he was in the Army, with Wernher von Braun, who I don't think many people hear of him in history today, but he was the man most responsible for the first rockets to the moon, the catalyst for the space program. And one of his favorite stories, and mine, so he was assigned to this Wernher von Braun. They called themselves prisoners of peace instead of prisoners of war because they had to decide who to surrender to, and these happened to decide on America. And they were in White Sands, New Mexico, where these rockets would go off, and stationed nearby in El Paso, Fort Bliss, Texas. And he had to watch over his every move. If they had to go, not to the bathroom so much, but if they went out to eat, if they went to a restaurant, he had to be, he was assigned to him. And he worked as a translator for him as well. And one day, he goes into Professor von Braun's office, and he looks at the blackboard, and he sees a drawing. It looks like spokes from a bicycle wheel. And he says, "Professor, what is that supposed to be?" He said, "That is going to be a space station, and someday people are going to live on those spokes." And Fred said, "You got to be kidding. That's the silliest thing I ever heard." But he learned to see it happen. He lived to see it happen. So it's just an example. And who's the forward written to? She just passed away several months ago, Dr. Ruth Westheimer. Best friends for 60-some years. They shared Passover together. Did she speak here? How about that? How did they meet? They were friends through a club of survivors called Boots and Poles. They liked to ski and they liked to hike. And Fred was friends with Freddie Westheimer, her to-be husband. And at a Yom HaShoah ceremony where at her synagogue in New York, she still held it against him.
I think it was the other way around. I think Freddie had more to complain about.
Well, anyway. She had a young daughter at the time, and she was looking, for a husband, and she was a short little girl. And he said, "Freddie, what are you doing with that little shrimp? She's never going to amount to anything. Ditch her and move on to somebody else." And they got married anyway. So she never let him forget that. Anything else I can answer for you before we go on our way tonight?
Nobody's asked about that Seder plate.
The Seder plate is also on the cover of the book.
That was a wedding gift that was hand-hammered by Jacob Behrend in 1710 and just had its 315th Seder last week on our table.
Yeah. And I celebrated with them.
You did.
And in fact, it's funny what is ordinary to you when you're close up to it. The book was 90% done. It was about to submit it to the editor. And he had showed me the plate before. But that's all I knew. And he just mentions in passing one day, he said, "We use that plate every Passover." I'm like, "Would you have liked to mention that before?" Now I got to go revise that into the book. So
the answer, though, to the question is the plate itself is made out of pewter. So it had no intrinsic value, and it had no value to the Nazis. It's priceless to us. And it is B'chol Dor V'Dor, and it will pass on. It's been father to son since 1710, and will continue to be.
Yeah, if you walk into his office in his house, it's like a museum. It's unbelievable. The yad is there that his father found during Kristallnacht, and Megillah scrolls. He donated one to a museum in Ludenscheid, and two of them he had, one from the 16th century, one from the 17th century. Just family heirlooms, nothing special. So, I want to thank you all for coming. If you do want the book, we'll be apparently out back. It retails for $30. We sell it for $25 in person. You can do cash and Venmo, but sorry, no credit card. I'm not that advanced. And I'm so glad that the documentary meant something to you. I had no idea what I was doing. I had some really great help, and I'm blessed that I had that help, and I'm glad it meant something to you. Thank you.
Larry and Andy, thank you so much. What an incredible story, and what an incredible connection that your families have made. Toda rabah. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. And thank you, Mark, for making sure we could all hear. And I'd like to just send our best wishes to Fred as well, and wishes for a refuah shlema. We're going to conclude our service now. So we'll turn back to our books, to our Sidurim. Oh, great. I now invite Mimi Pollack, who's going to lead us in the counting of the Omer on page 732 in our Sidurim. We rise as we are able.
Yesterday evening we counted 10 days in the Omer, and we continue. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat haomer. Hayom achad asher yom shehem shavua echad v'arba yamim la'omer. Today is the 11th day in the counting of the Omer, which comprises 1 week and 4 days.
Thank you, Mimi. And we've heard and spoken tonight about how much our tradition has meant for us throughout the years. And so we will conclude our service. We'll continue standing for Aleinu 662.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'teit gedula le'otzeh b'reishit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר ארץ ומושל יקרו בשמיים עמה ושכינת עוזו וגרם מרומים הוא אלוהינו אינו אבן מלכנו אפס זולתו כך כתוב בתורתו וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל והארץ מתחת עינינו. אוקיי, נקווה לך אדוני. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו
I'll now invite us all to stay standing as Cantor recites an El Malei Rachamim, a memorial prayer in memory of the 6 million.
El Malei Rachamim, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים ותורים כזוהר רקיע מזהירים, ונשמות כל אלה שהזכרנו היום לברכה, שהלכו לעולמם, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. אנא ברחמים, הסירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים בנשמותיהם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר Amen.
God, full of mercy, who dwells in the heights, grant proper rest beneath the wings of the divine presence, in the great heights of the holy and pure, who, like the brilliance of the heavens, shine to all the souls of the 6 million Jews, men, women, boys, and girls, victims of the European Holocaust, who were murdered, slaughtered, burnt, and exterminated in Auschwitz, in sanctification of God's name, at the hands of the German Nazi murderers and their assistants from other nations. Therefore, may the Master of Mercy shelter them in the shelter of their wings for eternity, and bind their souls with the bond of life. Adonai is their inheritance. May the Garden of Eden be their resting place, and may they find peaceful repose in their resting places, and may they stand for their destiny in the end of days. And let us say, Amen. Amen. We turn now to the mourner's Kaddish, and as we do so, we lift up the memories of those whose yortzites we observe tonight, as well as all those who were murdered in the Holocaust. So, a moment. Today we lovingly remember Sanford Goldstein, husband of Sharon Goldstein, Pauline Heisler, aunt of Gary Delson, and Senna Gottfried, mother of Estera Weiss. And we'll all stay standing and recite the mourner's Kaddish together on page 668. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma, Divrach, Yirtei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechon, U'vyomechon, U'chayei Techol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, U'bizman Karib, Yibru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam U'almei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yit'aleh V'yit'halal Shmei Nekudashah Richu Le'ela Mikol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Ta'amiran Ve'alma Ve'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah Yishmaya Ve'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. We will turn back now. We can be seated for a moment. We'll turn to page 798 and join together Eli, Eli, and the words written by Chana Senesh.
Eli, Eli, shelo yigamel le'olam, achol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, ve'rak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, achol ve'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, merak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. My Lord, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, and the rush of the waters, the fence of the heavens, the prayer of man, the sand and the sea, and the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man.
One of the things that was so beautiful about Fred's story was the role of hope, that he, as you shared, he really brings hope in his attitude and the way that he approaches life and approaches even telling his story. And so we continue having hope, and we will join together now. We'll rise as we are able to recite Hatikva, the age-old hope of Jews to have a land where we could be safe, to be allowed to return to the land of Israel. And we'll sing that together. 783.
Sophia, oh Lord,
as we leave tonight. If anybody hasn't picked up one of these yellow candles, we can do that. This concludes our program. Thank you all for coming to be together on this night of remembering.